We are live.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I guess we're live, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting for the Westfield City Council for Monday, May 10th to order. Should we say the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We've got Kara Busbarger. Kara Busbarger from the United Methodist Church is going to say.
Yes, thank you all so much. I'm new here to Westfield, so I'm so excited, and I'm learning that this was our former church that you all are meeting in, and then we're just right behind you. So let's pray this evening. Well, dear God, we thank you for your amazing power and work in our lives. Thank you for your goodness. Thank you that you are able to bring hope through even the toughest of times, strengthening us for your purposes. Thank you for your great love and care. Thank you for your mercy and grace. Thank you are always with us and you never leave us. As we gather tonight, may the agenda ahead reflect your divine agenda. Recalibrate our intentions and refocus our hearts for your righteousness to be done. Shift our perspective where needed for us to see with your eyes. Remind us of your faithful provision when our efforts fail us or fall short, and renew our hearts. And may we keep your love at the forefront of our minds this evening. And may it be the guiding light for all we set out to accomplish and celebrate. May your will be done. In the mighty name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Kara. Cindy Gossard, would you please note the presence of a quorum?
Scott Willis,
Here.
Jake Gilbert,
Here.
Joe Edwards,
Here.
Scott Fry,
Here.
Mike Johns,
Here.
Cindy Spaltieri,
Here.
Troy Patton.
Here.
We do have a quorum.
Thank you. First thing on the agenda would be to announce any changes to the agenda. Does anyone have any changes to the agenda?
I have two proposals, if I may, Mr. Johns. The new business ordinance 2127, it requires a public hearing. There was a snafu with one of the papers, so that will be addressed on the May 24th meeting.
Okay.
And number two, I think there was an RDC presentation coming up. I don't want any confusion with the Department of Local Government Finance. There was an annual report that the RDC submitted. That was the authorized report. The two gentlemen, they're going to speak here. We're not authorized to speak for the RDC, as I don't want there to be confusion with what was submitted to the state with the annual report and the presentation tonight.
Okay.
Other than that, that's it.
Okay. Thank you, Manny.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the meeting of April 26th. Does anyone have any additions or changes to the minutes from that meeting? Hearing none, I entertain a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved. Second.
Second? Jake, you second?
I think Troy second.
Oh, Troy second, okay. Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Troy Patton. Let's just do by vote acclamation in this one here. All in favor?
Sorry, Mr. Johns, if I may. Just recently, the state said all votes have to be roll call
All right.
through May 30th. So one more month. It's because the governor extended his executive order through May 30th. and so we're permitted to do virtual meetings, and it's a way of recording who voted for what. So even these tiny things.
All right, thank you.
Sorry, thanks.
All right, no problem. With that being said, Cindy Gossard, please call the roll.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Here.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Still 7-0.
Next item on the agenda is the claims docket for May 10th, 2021. Are there any questions regarding any of the claims? Hearing none, can I have a motion to approve the claims docket?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Cindy Spaljeric, seconded by Troy Patton. Cindy Gossard, will you please call the roll?
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeri,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the docket will be a presentation by the council's RDC representatives, Bob Botry and Brian Ferguson, regarding the first quarter of the RDC for 2021.
Good evening, councilors. My name is Brian Ferguson. Standing beside me is Bob Beaudry. We are the City Council's representatives on the Westfield Redevelopment Commission. I was appointed on February 8th of this year. Bob was appointed in the fall of 2020. For background, the RDC is comprised of 6 members, 3 voting members appointed by the mayor, 2 voting members appointed by the City Council, and 1 non-voting member from the Westfield School Board. The City Council has asked us to provide an RDC update on a quarterly basis, and this is the first such meeting update of the year. Interestingly, in an email, the president of the RDC said that such an update was, quote, totally improper. We repeatedly asked why such an update was totally improper, and we received no response. In any event, we think perhaps the best way to give you an update is to go through each meeting chronologically and highlight the important events. At the January 19th meeting, updates on Grand Park and Grand Junction were provided. Additionally, the voting for the 2021 RDC officer positions was held, with the mayor's 3 representatives each appointing and voting for each other to be president, vice president, and secretary. At the February 22nd meeting, there were essentially 3 things that were discussed. The first was the approval of claims. The approval of claims is a process we just went through, where the RDC retroactively approves claims that have already been paid. Your representatives objected to this retroactive approval and inquired about the purpose for doing so. Moreover, we asked why the claims couldn't be presented before being paid. In response, the president said that this is the way it's always been done. Additionally, we were told that many of the payments were by contract and on set schedules. However, by stating such reasons, they were inadvertently proving our point. The approval of claims passed by a 3-2 vote, with the mayor's representatives all voting in favor. Next, Resolution 01-2021 was introduced to amend the amended declaratory resolution and economic development plan for the Grand Junction Economic Development Area. It's quite a mouthful. The resolution refers to at least 7 other resolutions, none of which were provided as background or reference prior to the meeting. The 2021 amendments included a revised description of the Grand Junction Economic Development Plan to include general public parking and to move 4 parcels of land from one allocation area to another allocation area within the Grand Junction TIF. The 4 parcels are owned by Old Town and were moved to the Union Square allocation area. We don't understand what the point is for moving parcels of land between TIF areas, why the developer would have a vested interest in moving them, or whether it's even appropriate to do so. It seems to us that the future income from those 4 land parcels has already been pledged to pay existing bonds in the previous TIF area. There is already a $6 million bond that was approved in 2019, but is yet to be issued for the Union Square project. The TIF income from the Union Square area, which now includes the 4 additional land parcels, is expected to be used to support the issuance of another bond. The last we heard was for $12 million, in order to provide a parking garage to be owned by the city. The parking garage is to be built under a public-private partnership between Old Town and the city. A public-private partnership is one where the developer is selected, so there is no open bidding process. Additionally, depending on the cost, there is no remonstrance to get voting approval from the citizens of Westfield. You will recall that the city entered into a public-private partnership several years ago to build the Grand Park Events Center. At that time, the city claimed that better financing would be obtained through the developer. Yet, at the first opportunity to do so, the city purchased the event center rather than continue with the lease. We don't know why the city would be interested in owning a $12 million parking garage that would primarily benefit the Union Square development. The city should explore leasing some parking spaces from the developer or otherwise provide a parking lot at another nearby location. These options are more cost-effective and provide more flexibility than owning and maintaining a parking garage for an unknown parking space demand. The declaratory resolution passed by a 3-1-1 vote, with the mayor's representatives, again, all voting in favor. The next meeting was on March 15th. The agenda for this meeting didn't mention anything about the 3 bullpen agreements, which were an amendment to the management agreement, the landscaping services agreement, landscaping services maintenance agreement, and a consent agreement. The 3 were instead introduced under the heading of Sports Campus Update. Even more alarming is that the drafts of these agreements were not disclosed to the RDC members prior to the meeting. Indeed, this was the first time that we had ever even heard of these agreements. The amendment was described as memorializing an oral or handshake agreement made between the executive director of the RDC and Bullpen. As part of the presentation, lawyers on behalf of the RDC represented that they had reviewed the agreements and assured the RDC members that the agreements were ready for approval. The president made a motion to have all 3 of the agreements collectively approved based solely on the oral presentation, again, without the RDC members having even seen the agreements. Your representatives objected to approving the agreements without sufficient due diligence. At that point, all 3 of the agreements were tabled for a future meeting. In our opinion, the executive director fully intended and expected to have all 3 of the bullpen agreements approved based solely on the oral presentation. Otherwise, there would have been no need for an emergency RDC meeting that was held a mere 9 days later on March 24th. Drafts of the documents were provided between the RDC meetings, and your representatives wrote several emails requesting that various information and documents be provided. The correspondence between your representatives and the executive director was at times very contentious, verging on confrontation. The March 24th meeting, the first item was approval of the minutes from the March 15th meeting. Despite the introduction of the 3 bullpen agreements, a discussion that lasted 11 minutes and represented almost 20% of the meeting, and which included a motion to vote on the agreements, not one word of the bullpen agreements was mentioned in the minutes. Next, after several procedural maneuverings, the consent agreement was moved to the top. This agreement allowed Bullpen to operate and manage a baseball facility in Kokomo. Paragraph J in the consent agreement states, quote, "The commission has determined that the proposed field agreement will not have a significant adverse effect on the Grand Park Agreement and is willing to waive the prohibition contained in the Grand Park Agreement and give its consent for 1, BVK to enter into the management agreement, and 2, to enter into the field agreement," end quote. Your representatives asked that the Kokomo agreements be provided so that determination could be made whether in fact the Kokomo agreements would have a significant adverse effect on the Grand Park agreements. We asked for drafts of the Kokomo agreements, but none were provided. In our opinion, Bullpen could have and should have entered into the Kokomo agreements first, conditioned on the subsequent approval from the RDC. Only after having reviewed the Kokomo agreements should the RDC have given their approval. Nevertheless, by a 3-2 vote, the consent agreement was approved, with the mayor's representatives all voting in favor. The discussion then moved to the amendment to the management agreement. Your representatives again walked through the various issues previously identified via email. Of particular concern was the retroactive approval going back to January 2018 and codification of the handshake agreement. For background, the handshake agreement was apparently an open secret within the administration, which was only later formally identified as a non-compliance issue in the State Board of Accounts 2019 report. The handshake agreement was to forego the RDC's share of admission revenue and merchandise revenue as defined in the management agreement, in exchange for Bullpen assuming the maintenance of the Diamond Sports common areas from the RDC. However, paragraph 10.08 of the management agreement states, quote, "No provision of this agreement may be amended or otherwise modified except by an agreement in writing signed by the parties," end quote. The language is clear and unambiguous. RDC lawyers nevertheless stated that the city was stopped from not honoring the handshake agreement. We respectfully disagree. Neither party, whether the RDC nor Bullpen, has the authority to amend the management agreement if it's not in writing. The executive director pointed to Resolution 1-17 for his authority to make the handshake deal on behalf of the RDC. We assume the executive director is referring to Section 1, which states, quote, "The commission now creates the position of executive director to serve at the pleasure of the commission and to coordinate the necessary tasks and duties necessary to conduct business at Grand Park. Authority for final approvals and acts remain with the commission," end quote. And Section 4, which states, quote, "This resolution is effective from adoption. All acts undertaken by those on behalf of the commission within the spirit of this resolution are hereby ratified," end quote. This resolution is peculiar for a couple of reasons. First, it is only signed by 3 members of the RDC, the very same 3 members who were appointed by the mayor and who still currently serve on the RDC. How did the other 2 members of the RDC vote on the resolution, and why didn't they sign it? Second, the resolution is not attested by the clerk treasurer, nor anyone else for that matter. As justification to support the handshake agreement, figures were orally presented for the amount of revenue the RDC should have received per the management agreement against the amount the RDC would have paid for landscaping services based on the 2017 rates from the last contractor. In our opinion, this is not the proper comparison. The RDC's damages would be the amount of revenue that they should have received from the Bullpen, which was represented to be $703,000. Bullpen's damages, on the other hand, would be reimbursement of the actual costs they incurred to provide landscaping and maintenance services. This would essentially put the parties back to their original position if the management agreement had been followed. We do not believe Bullpen would get damages based on some fictional amount that the RDC would have paid a third party, which was represented to be $947,000. Your representatives asked the Bullpen provide their actual costs for the landscaping and maintenance services. However, this information was not provided on its own, but was stated to be included in the monthly financial statements provided by Bullpen per the terms of the management agreement. We repeatedly asked to see the monthly financial statements, and for about a month, they were not provided. It seems odd to us that it would take a month to provide a series of financial statements that the RDC has supposedly already received over the course of many years. Nevertheless, prior to the April 19th meeting, the executive director said that the reports were now available to be reviewed, but that due to the confidential and proprietary nature involving trade secrets of the information, it would not be disclosed publicly, and the RDC members could not therefore disclose or share it publicly after having reviewed it. Paragraph 3.05, financial reporting in the management agreement, makes no such disclosure restrictions. Moreover, if the RDC was previously getting the reports on a monthly basis since at least 2015, then why wasn't the confidential proprietary explanation given long ago? Instead, we heard it for the very first time in April of 2021, and only after we had requested to see them to help make the determination about whether the handshake agreement was in fact a good deal for the RDC. In our opinion, it wasn't. Bullpen's actual costs for providing landscaping and maintenance services were higher than the RDC's projected costs for providing those services, then they would have been used to support the justification. In our opinion, the label of confidential and proprietary information involving trade secrets placed on Bullpen's financial reports, which, when combined with the threat of possible litigation if disclosed, was meant to prevent your representatives from using the information publicly to support reasons for objecting to the bullpen agreements. We therefore declined. Additionally, without having the benefit of having seen the figures, a principled decision could be made that regardless of how the figures turned out, whether actually benefiting the RDC or actually benefiting bullpen, the handshake agreement shouldn't be codified and retroactively approved over 3+ years later. After several more questions, the amendment and landscaping management agreements were both tabled. The April 19th meeting. The 2020 Development Commission report on TIF districts was discussed, along with the approval of a service agreement. Discussion then turned once again to the amendment to the management agreement. With time sufficiently filled with other matters, and after a discussion about the ability to review the bullpen reports, the President said the following statements, quote, "This is just a memorialization of old news. It's past history," end quote. Whereupon your representatives attempted to ask additional questions, to which the President then said, quote, "We don't have time. The time for your questions is over," end quote. The President then shamelessly moved for a vote. Keep in mind, there were no actual justification presented to support the President's refusal to allow questions. No strict timelines have ever been advised or adhered to previously, no warning of time constraints was previously given in the meeting, no procedural grounds were cited. The amendment was approved 3-2, with the mayor's representatives, again, all approving. We then moved to the landscaping agreement. Comparisons of potential costs from the city's previous provider, and bullpen were presented. As a side note, the city is currently providing landscaping services for the field/soccer site of Grand Park. Back in September of 2020, a request for proposal was sent out, and the bids were apparently discussed at an RDC meeting in December. However, the meeting was conducted by video, and due to apparent technicalities, it couldn't be viewed live, nor was it recorded. Notes from the meeting state that all bids were to be discarded. However, if the bids were all discarded, then how did we end up comparing the bullpen proposal to essentially 2 city proposals, one of which wasn't even a real proposal, but a projected one at that? Once again, the landscape agreement was approved 3-2, the mayor's representatives all approving. Now I'd open it up for questions from the council, and after questions, I have a statement I'd like to make.
I have a question. So, what is the additional, how many additional teams, did you guys see the projections on the additional teams that are going to be able to be, to participate in tournaments in Kokomo?
We were not provided with any information like that. The only information we were provided was the additional revenue that was expected to come in through the hotels.
Yeah.
And we subsequently asked them to provide
The
that
backup?
documentation. Yeah.
I mean, there was no backup for any of that?
Not at the time that it was passed.
Okay.
I have a quick question. What is the mandatory time limit to one of your meetings?
There isn't one, as far
Well,
as I know.
typically, the RDC meeting is followed up by APC or something else. So, I mean, I was told when I first was appointed to the APC, or the RDC, that it was in the best interest of time to ask as many questions as you could ahead of time.
Sure.
And then, in the interest of time, then, you know. But I hesitate to do that because when I ask questions, I would like to have them on record.
I understand. So, in the best interest of time,
Yes.
because sometimes there are things that follow you perhaps immediately after your meeting,
Yes.
it's best to get the questions up front. But do I understand you correctly? There is no mandated hard stop to a meeting?
Right.
Did I understand you to say that you were told you didn't have time to ask questions?
That's correct.
Okay. And it sounds like there was a reoccurring theme that, if I understood you correctly, you were asked to vote on things that you did not have information on. Is that correct?
That's absolutely correct.
I just wanted to make sure I heard that. Thank you.
That's bullshit.
Who said that?
Pardon?
Who said that?
I don't know. Somebody on the phone.
They probably thought they were on mute.
And, you know, I did have a meeting with Todd and William Knox and Manny, and it was informative on some of the things they shared. And I think, you know, if you have questions as far as the bullpen proprietary and trade secrets that are withheld in their financials, you know, I think Manny evaluated that and came to the conclusion that, you know, there was something that was within their financials that would be considered proprietary and be a potential litigation issue for us. I mean, I don't want to speak for you, but I'm assuming that you reviewed that.
Yeah, I hate to comment on stuff that could be brought against us. It's not a determination we make. Those analyses are determined by whomever provides the information. And generally speaking, the statute requires transparency. That's what it's there for, unless certain exceptions apply, which is if it's confidential information determined by another statute, which is the Trade Secrets Act, or if it's confidential information as determined otherwise. And Bullpen made it very clear that that type of information is proprietary. They don't share it with competitors. It would affect them in the competitive marketplace, and that is not an obligation that the city would like to take up and get
Right.
sued on. But those documents remain available for review by any member of the council or the RDC. I believe they're still in Todd's office.
And I would just like to say, just for a point of clarity, if it's proprietary information, I understand that completely, but I think there was a theme there that wasn't even necessarily specific to Bullpen. There were multiple times you'd mentioned not seeing information or not having information, being asked to vote. If I'm understanding that correctly, that's a significant issue.
We were told, I think we received an email the Thursday before the RDC meeting in April that we had received an email from Mr. Patron, and he had updated us that he had received all the pertinent financial information from Bullpen, and it was available for us to review in his office if we so chose to do that.
Okay.
We could make an appointment. This was like Thursday afternoon, and our meeting was Monday. I happened to be out of town, and I had to rush back Monday to make the RDC meeting, so I didn't have an opportunity. So I would like to see, moving forward, the RDC release their agenda a little bit more timely, because a lot of times we receive it late in the week prior to the meeting. And so if we would have questions for Manny or you or anybody else, it makes it very challenging because we don't want to disturb you on the weekend. And so that's something that we need to maybe address or talk over and try to see if we can't get that remedied.
I might say that you gentlemen are serving as a result of us answering a State Board of Accounts request to solve a problem. And this was set out to do that way, and we appreciate your service. I think there are inroads to be made here. I can't imagine in my time ever signing a document that I wouldn't want anybody, for the city of Westfield, that I wouldn't want anybody to see. But times have changed, apparently. I don't like it. I don't think it's good. It's not good business. But I think you gentlemen are doing a fine job. I appreciate it.
I agree.
I agree.
Well, that makes my next statement awful difficult to say then. It's my opinion that the RDC is not much more than a rubber stamp, and there's not sufficient due diligence and inspection of documents and things like that that are going on. I value my time, and I don't feel like it's being used appropriately. So it's for that reason that I'm going to resign tonight. And I thank the council for allowing me to serve. At your pleasure.
Again, we appreciate that.
We do.
That's unfortunate, but, transparency, I would make it just a blanket statement. We talk a lot about transparency, and everybody's transparent, and we're always transparent and communicating, except when we don't want to be. And it's really unfortunate. And I hope the taxpayers understand that whether, it doesn't matter who we put on the RDC or any other thing else. If the mayor has 3 appointees and we have 2, we're just, whatever they want to vote, they can vote. And that's the way it is. It's meant to be that way, and so be it. However, it would be nice if we just had a little more transparency for the taxpayers, because after all, that is all of us represent the taxpayer. And if you don't represent the taxpayer, then you really don't have any business actually being in public office. And I'll just kind of leave it at that, so.
Well said.
And I'd like to thank both of you for your service. This is an excellent quarterly report. We are going to continue to have quarterly reports so that this council understands what's happening and the taxpayers understand what's happening. Thank you.
Mr. Ferguson? Mr. Ferguson? If I may, just very quickly, right here. I want to echo the sentiments, and again, I understand the value of your time. I'm not going to try to twist your arm, but I would ask that, again, echoing the sentiments that were made here earlier, this is an excellent report. This is an excellent overview. This is the type of stuff that we need. This is the type of thing that the taxpayers of Westfield need to understand and to get the full picture of exactly what's going on. And again, I'm not going to twist your arm. I understand that your time is certainly very valuable, but I would ask you to maybe reconsider and consider possibly staying on for a little while longer and just seeing what changes we can possibly make.
I'll think about it and let you know
All right, thank you.
if my decision changes.
I appreciate it.
Thanks for the kind words.
Yep.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda tonight is a presentation on May is Mental Health Month and the city's You Are Enough campaign. That's Jay. Jay, come on.
That's me. So yeah, just quickly. May is a National Mental Health Month, and we would, obviously all around the country, we know that as we come out of the fog of COVID, there's been upticks and increases in mental health issues, domestic disturbances, suicides, mental health check-ins at facilities, alcohol-related issues, stress-induced issues, a lot, not just here in Westfield, but in across the country. So this is a national month, and I just wanted to highlight, in case you see some signs out there, the You Are Enough campaign is something that is a great collaboration within our city between NAMI, the Chamber, the city, Parent University, the township, and the Wellbeing Coalition. So I do think that this is a great thing, and all these people coming together to collaborate to give daily tips for anyone who's interested on how they can strengthen their mental health, how they can help themselves, how they can help someone they care about. And you can always go to the Wellbeing Coalition website to find tips, resources, whether it's for you or someone else. There's just a lot of information that we've compiled out there. And please also remember that we are still running a training every month of some sort to help people, again, with your mental health, or maybe recognize something to be able to help a loved one. Thank you.
Thank you, Jay. Moving on now to old business. Our first item is Resolution 21-104, Fiscal Plan for Ordinance 21-18, North Point Phase 3. It is up for adoption and consideration this evening. Ms. Pam Howard, will you address this?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening for your consideration, we have a 100% voluntary annexation and associated fiscal plan for approximately 3 acres located at 2429 East 202nd Street and part of the North Point development. The annexation ordinance did receive a public hearing on April 12th, and both the fiscal plan and annexation are eligible for your adoption consideration this evening. Table 5 of the fiscal plan does show the total net impact of the annexation being just under $6,000, about $5,800. So I am available for questions if you have any questions of the department. Thank you.
questions, councilors? So, Annie, I have a question for you.
Yes,
Can we
sir.
vote on these together, the resolution and the ordinance, or do we need to vote separately?
Separately would be preferable,
Preferable.
just so there's a clear record. Yes, sir.
Okay. Then if hearing no questions, can I have a motion to approve resolution 21-104?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. Motion's been made by Troy Patton, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy Gasser, please call the roll.
Scott Willis,
Say my name? Yes.
Scott Willis.
Sorry, I didn't
yes.
hear.
Troy Patton,
Is that me?
Yes.
Troy, okay. Scott Fry,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item is ordinance 21-18, North Point Phase 3 annexation. This was up for council introduction on April 12th. There was a public hearing on it on April 12th, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening. Pam?
I have no other comments on this one.
Councilors, any questions, comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-18?
So moved.
Have a second? Motion made by Cindy and seconded by Jake. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item on the agenda is resolution 21-105, fiscal plan for ordinance 21-19, Bella Crest. It's up for adoption consideration this evening, and we'll hear from Pam.
Yes, thank you again, Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. Before you this evening, we have a 100% voluntary annexation and associated fiscal plan for 20 acres located at the northwest corner of 186th Street and Shady Nook Road, which is the entire Bellcrest development. This item again received a public hearing on April 12th and is eligible for your adoption this evening. Again, Table 5 of the annexation shows the total net impact. For this one would be about $19,500. I am available for questions if you have any of the department. Thank you.
Questions, councilors? Hearing no questions, can I have a motion, please, to approve?
So
resolution?
moved.
I'll second that.
Motion made by Joe Edwards, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy, please call the roll.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item is ordinance 21-19, annexation of Bella Crest. It had a council introduction on April 12th with a public hearing also on April 12th. And it's up for consideration this evening.
No additional comments. Thank you.
Any comments? Hearing no comments, do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21-19?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Jake Gilbert, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, could you please call the roll?
Excuse me, Troy Patton,
Yes.
Cindy Spalgeric,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Fry.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Next item, resolution 21-106, fiscal plan for ordinance 21-20, Caramore. It's up for adoption consideration this evening. Pam Howard?
Yes, thank you. Pam Howard with the Community Development Department. For you this evening, we have 100% voluntary annexation for land to be part of the Kiramore development at the northwest corner of 199th Street and Horton Road. The annexation ordinance did receive a public hearing April 12th and is eligible for your consideration this evening, along with the fiscal plan resolution. Again, Table 5 on this does show the total net impact. This one is over $185,000, and I am available if you have any questions. Thank you.
Questions, comments? Hearing none, do I have a motion to approve Resolution 21-106?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Motion made by Scott Willis, seconded by Joe Edwards. Cindy, would you please call the roll?
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes?
Cindy Spalcherik,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. Follow-up ordinance 21-20, the annexation of Caramore. Again, this had a council introduction on April 12th with a public hearing on that evening also, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening. Pam Howard,
No additional comments. Thank you.
thanks, Pam. Councilors, any comments? Can I have a motion then to approve ordinance 21-20?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Motion made by Cindy Spalcherik, seconded by Scott Fry. Cindy Gasser, would you please call the roll?
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcherik,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards.
Yes.
Motion carries 7.
Thank you. Thank you. The next item under old business is ordinance 21-24, the Maple Knoll PUD Amendment 4. Council introduction was done on April 12th. There was also a public hearing on May 5th at the APC recommendation on May 5th, which was an 8-0 recommendation in favor, and it's up for adoption consideration this evening. Pam, are you going to speak to this?
Yeah, Caleb is on the call to speak to this one.
Yep, so Caleb Ernest with the City of Westfield. President Johns outlined it well. It has received unanimous favorable recommendation from the Plan Commission. John Dobashewitz, on behalf of the petitioner, is here tonight. He does not plan on making a presentation, but is available for questions, as am I should you have questions. And just as a brief reminder here, this is in regards to the outlots that are along the Spring Mill Point Drive. This is in regards to allowing dumpster enclosures within the established front yard only for the Spring Mill Point Drive road. The only modifications that have been made since you saw this at introduction was that the text of the ordinance read that if the gates were oriented towards the frontage road, that it would be permitted, but since then that has been modified so that the gates shall not face Spring Mill Point Drive. So just to kind of summarize that up, dumpster enclosures would be permitted in the established front yard only towards Spring Mill Point Drive, and the gates of the dumpster enclosures are not permitted to be oriented towards Spring Mill Point Drive. So that is all that I have. Thank you.
Councilors, any questions, concerns, comments? Do I have a motion to approve ordinance 21
24.
24, Maple Knoll PUD?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. The motion was made by Cindy Spalcherik, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy Gasser, would you please call?
That was actually Joe Edwards, sorry about that. I don't want to take credit for Joe's voice.
I'm sorry, it's Joe Edwards. Okay.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcherik,
Yes.
Troy Patton,
Yes.
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Scott Willis.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thank you. That's what I get for looking ahead here. Okay, new business. As we mentioned, the first ordinance, 21-27, has been pulled from this evening and will be reintroduced at our next city meeting on May 24th. The next ordinance under new business is ordinance 21-28, the overlook at Woodwind PUD. It's up for a council introduction tonight, and then we'll move off to the APC hearing on June 7th. And we expect to see it back here on July 12th. This is, as I understand it, is a Pulte Homes ordinance. Can I ask who's going to speak to this?
Yes, Matt Skelton, the petitioner, is here to speak on this.
Good evening, members of the council. For your record, my name is Matt Skelton with Church Hill Antrim, with offices here in town at 116 North Union Street in Westfield. With me this evening with Pulte Group is Rex Ramage. You're seeing the vicinity map up on your screen right now. We're here this evening to present to you plans for the overlook at Woodwind. It's a new single-family, high-end residential neighborhood immediately adjacent to Woodwind Golf Course on 161st Street. The site consists of approximately 75 acres. It's within the existing city's corporate limits, and the residents of the overlook will be mandatory social members of the Woodwind Golf Club, included in their HOA regular payments. Are you able to toggle to the comprehensive plan? Yeah, just for your reference only, we've identified where the site is in on your comprehensive plan map. It's identified in the area that is the new suburban southwest, and that area has the concept plan for this proposal has been designed to comply with the recommendations of the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan contemplates that the larger undeveloped agricultural areas, agricultural lots in this area will eventually at some point develop and when doing so, they're supposed to be developed in a manner that is contextually sensitive to the surroundings. And so that's what we've attempted to do, if you want to put up the concept plan. That's what we've attempted to do. And we've gotten some early feedback from folks that I'll cover here in just a little bit, but just to highlight the homes that would be constructed within the overlook at Woodwind are in excess of 3,000 square feet. The average home values will be in excess of $600,000. The concept plan has been designed so that no homes back up to external streets. So we've been able to address that item that is reflected in the comprehensive plan as well. Each home is required to have a minimum of a 3-car garage. No front load garages are permitted within this development, so there'll be all the required 3-car garages would be side load. And like most developments that you see these days, no aluminum or vinyl siding is permitted. And there are requirements for masonry, some masonry on all 4 sides. As you can notice by the plan here, there are a couple of significant green areas shown on the plan. There's an internal park kind of central to the concept plan, which is really designed to be a neighborhood maintained amenity area. There's also near the entrance on 161st Street a planned either a meadow area or an orchard area. We're still kind of working through that, but try to preserve the rural character of that 161st Street drive. Like I said, we've received some early feedback from folks, and I want to thank Mr. Fry for being so forthcoming and available to us. A lot of the subjects that we've discussed preliminarily with him and others are not fully reflected in what has been submitted. We just couldn't make all the changes in time to get them filed, but they are forthcoming. I will categorize 4 general comments that we've received, just to kind of highlight what I think we'll be working on as we move through the process. One is we were asked to incorporate a 5-acre tract that is, you might show the site plan, or the vicinity plan, I'm sorry. You can see the yellow area that extends up to 166th Street. That actually is owned by the same owner of the primary overlook property. We've spoken with that owner, and we're able to incorporate that to provide some assurance to neighbors about the future of that parcel. The intent is to have it really set aside as a couple of very large lots for estate homes in that area. So that has been, we've been able to incorporate that, and future plans will reflect that. And it is part of the submission that is before you. We were asked to consider increasing lot sizes within the development. If you want to show the concept plan, please. And that is something that we're evaluating opportunities to do that. I think we're going to be able to accommodate that request to some extent. But it's interesting, in the comprehensive plan, I think it does a good job of acknowledging kind of the tugging and pulling between creativity and buffering and transitions with the size of actual lots. It actually recommends more of a focus on the overall density of a project than the size of an individual lot. But there's some balancing that will happen, I think, through this process, and we expect to have that conversation. Thirdly, buffering. We were just asked to give special attention to our buffering strategy, which we have done and will continue to do, and I think you'll see some enhancements in future plans. And then I'm just going to categorize this last one as quality of development, and I think this has less to do with it's ensuring the quality of the actual homes that will be constructed within the development, but I think it's also how they relate to each other and the feel that it creates within the overall proposal. And some of the initial suggestions included some varying setbacks, some varying architectural features, building materials, colors, things of that nature, which are, I mean, I think there's a really good start in the PUD that is before you this evening, but I fully expect to have additional conversations as we move through the process on that. So with that, I just want to communicate we're excited to be proposing this high-end commercial or residential development here, and we look forward to working through the process. And when we get our neighbor meeting scheduled, you'll be the first to know the date and time. And we're happy to receive any input or questions now or in the future.
Councilors, questions, comments?
Just a question, Matt. When are you going to have the new submittal with the new plan? Is that just for Planning Commission? You'll have that ready?
And I'm happy to discuss this with folks. At the risk, we can make some modifications in advance. It becomes a little bit untenable for a staff person to be able to review more than one plan in anticipation of a plan commission hearing. But I think what I would suggest is we have the neighborhood meeting and then see what can happen between there and the plan commission.
I'm going to hold off on my comments then until after that process happens.
That's fine, got it.
Matt, first of all, I just want to thank you for the effort that you put into this. Again, the conversation I think has been good, and I appreciate the attention to the buffering and some of the things we've talked about. I'm not going to, this is not, I don't want to beat you up or make you feel bad or anything like that, but I do think significant modifications would need to take place here to make this fit. Again, from the perspective of density, from the perspective of buffering for all the neighbors that are current homeowners out there, for fitting in, and I think you said it well, kind of the rural look and feel as you're driving down 161st Street. You'd referenced the orchards or a meadow, trying to figure out what's going to fit best in there. I think whatever the overall plan is, the whole plan needs to fit in with that, that part of our city. I think it's going to be really challenging to do with small lot sizes and this many homes in there, but I know you guys can do some pretty amazing things. So I'm not gonna pass judgment on that just yet, but it is a challenge. I think it's going to be a pretty significant challenge for you. And this is one of the. I just want to throw this out there. This is one of the. We don't have too many areas left that we're going to be rezoning for PUDs and things like that, and we really need to take a look at the comprehensive plan and make sure, this area is supposed to have the larger lots, the less density. We want to make sure we do it right, and this is an opportunity to do that. So, again, I appreciate the attention and the focus that you've given this. I'm anxious to see what changes can be made, but I appreciate you listening for sure.
Thank you.
Matt, and to piggyback on that, it would be helpful if we had some comparative information,
Sure.
say Bent Creek or some of those other, so that we can compare densities. That would just be helpful if that's attainable for us.
I'm happy to do that. And just for your reference, if anybody is interested, the density on what you're seeing right here is about 1.39 per acre. So that means for every home, there's about three quarters of an acre of real estate per home in the overall development. So that, just to put it into perspective, I'm sure that's the lowest density that you folks have seen, at least since you've been in office, but that probably, I don't know if it's the lowest in the city, and I can do that.
Just for point of clarification, that's the lowest when you're looking at the overall subdivision, but the homes and the lot sizes are still going to potentially feel like they're right on top of each other. So we want to be careful and make sure that's not the case.
I understand your comment, thanks.
All right.
Other comments? Matt, thanks for the work you've done so far, and I'm looking forward to see what you come up with.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Matt.
The next item under new business, ordinance 21-29, which is 224 David Brown Drive. It's a rezone, up for council introduction this evening and on to the APC on June 7th.
Thank you, Council President. This is Caleb Ernest with the City of Westfield. As stated, this is the property located at 224 David Brown Drive. Jeremiah Kitchell is the petitioner, and he is planning on rezoning the property from the GB-PV, the General Business Plan Development Zoning District, to SF1, Single Family Large Lot District. He is here tonight and plans on making a brief presentation. Both he and I are available should you have any questions. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Caleb, and thank you for the assistance in putting this application together. Essentially just wanted, go ahead.
Just introduce yourself again.
Yes, Jeremiah Kitchell, homeowner of the current residence and property at 224 David Brown Drive. Again, thanks, Caleb, for the assistance in getting this application together. I originally called Caleb with the intention of understanding the process to potentially subdivide that lot. It is right at 1.68 acres, and I absolutely love my outside time mowing that lawn, but we have my wife and I have a 2-year-old at home now, and one on the way, and she appreciates my lawn mowing time a lot less than I do at the current moment. So I'm here at the request of her to see about potentially rezoning this property as it falls into the SF1 district in the hopes of subdividing that lot. That lot would fall within the SF1's large lot district, so it would have the 100 feet width and the appropriate depth with the appropriate setbacks on property lines to maintain SF1 compliance. You know, my goal and hope would be that I could find someone that would want to build there. Beautiful dream home there with the Westfield Boulevard connector there and the walking path. It's a pretty incredible location to get right into downtown and then all the development that's coming in there. So that is the desire and the goal and the reason I am here.
Make sure my questions, Councilor?
I have one, it's kind of more of an administrative question. You want to do SF1, and that'd be really tricky to meet those lot standards in this kind of subdivision. So I'm wondering why SF1 was chosen.
SF1 was chosen because as the current house sits, let me look up SF1. It would meet the requirements of you know, 80 feet off the collectors, 50 feet off local private streets, 20 feet on the side yard, 30 feet on the rear yard. It just seemed like the most appropriate current ordinance for the property.
Yeah. I do want to clarify, he's talking about just the SF1 district, not the AG SF1 district.
Okay.
It's not a commonly used zoning district. Honestly, I'm not sure if we have any other property zoned this, even though it is in our ordinance. But yeah, so it is a smaller lot size. It does not have the 3-acre requirement that you see in the AG SF1 district. It's a 30,000 square foot lot area.
But as the subdivision happens, then wouldn't that other parcel need to be rezoned too? Because it probably couldn't meet the standard, or are you saying it could
would.
meet the standard?
Yes, you'd be rezoning the entire parcel so that it could then be split and both parcels would comply with the standards.
Okay, I just didn't want you to have to go through this again.
For sure, thank you, I appreciate that.
Okay.
And that ultimately was what Caleb helped me understand as I began the subdividing process or inquiry, is that if I subdivided as current, no one would be able to do anything with that lot.
So Pam, I'm assuming that the city concurs with this strategy and you don't see any issues with that, or since this is to be the first we have in the city?
That is correct. Yeah.
Questions? Jeremiah, thank you. Look forward to seeing you back.
Thank you, appreciate it, guys.
Next item on the agenda, Resolution 21-114, the Common Council, City of Westfield, Indiana, finding that property owners are in substantial compliance for tax rebate purposes. It's up for adoption consideration this evening, and I think Chuck is going to address, I think there are 3 issues here.
Thank you. Thank you, Councilor President. For the record, Kai Chuck, the Economic Development Director. Good evening, councilors. This is a continuation of the abatement compliance resolution from last city council meeting. We had some late entries in. Each company that has been awarded an abatement must complete a CF1 form compliance form every year to see if they're in compliance with the SB1 form that they submitted originally. BNC Corp is, that is Browning Chapman, as you can see there above the actual estimated SB1 in terms of figures, in terms of employment and wages and salary. They are submitting late mainly because the assessment came in on their property. If the assessment did not come in, they were not going to take the deduction. So we have until Monday to submit them on behalf of the company once it's approved by council president and clerk's office. So this is the last opportunity for companies to submit the form to be approved to take the deduction.
And did I see there were 3 of them here, and they're all?
That's correct.
They're all above?
They're not all above, they're close because of, this is a different, the other 2 are different types of businesses, and the COVID-19 impacted them a little bit more than the first company. But as mentioned in the previous council meeting, I will follow up with the company and find out the correct situation if it's not rectified in the near future.
Okay. Thank you, Kai. Councilors, questions? So this kind of clears it up. This is the last three abatements that.
Yes, this was
are
the
due.
last three for this year.
Okay. Do I have a resolution to approve, or do I have a motion to approve resolution 22-114?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, the motion has been made by Scott Fry, seconded by Scott Willis. Cindy Gasser, could you please call the roll?
Jake Gilbert,
Yes.
Joe Edwards,
Yes.
Scott Fry,
Yes.
Mike Johns,
Yes.
Cindy Spalcheric,
Yes.
Scott Willis,
Yes.
Troy Patton.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Thanks, Kai, and
Thank you.
I'll get those signed for you tomorrow morning, right away. Thank you. All right, next item under new business, ordinance 21-21. It's the ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Westfield regarding NDOT and State Road 32. Okay, this ordinance would basically addresses the fact that we've requested information regarding the cost for State Road 32 and why federal funding was removed on part of NDOT. And at this point, we've yet to receive the request for information that we asked for. So, let me go through my statement here briefly before I open the floor up to other discussions, okay? First, let me say very clearly that to the best of my knowledge, every counselor up here supports the reconstruction of State Road 32 through downtown Westfield. However, as someone who has drafted and negotiated contracts throughout my career, several with Fortune 500 companies, this, in my opinion, is one of the worst agreements I've seen. While it locks in NDOT's exposure, Westfield is on the hook for any money spent over plan. The exposure is huge, and that's why I asked for some financial update a couple months ago. On March 8th, I respectfully requested that the administration provide the council with a list of updated costs for the project by March 19th. I did not receive that. On April 5th, Councilor Patton and I met with the administration finally to review costs. We did that. We had several questions that came out of that meeting that we felt would be best to be addressed by NDOT. On April 15th, we had a Zoom call which included three counselors, Councilor Willis, Councilor Gilbert, and myself. That's the maximum allowed under the open door policy. At the end of that meeting, that Zoom call with NDOT, I asked and requested that NDOT, in fact, meet with the entire council so that this body could question and ask them questions regarding the costs and the design of the project. They agreed to do that. The administration was scheduled and was set to schedule and arrange a public meeting so that we could have our inquiry. Unfortunately, that venue, which was Grand Park on May 4th, was not the open forum which I had hoped for and in fact requested. It was rather a video presentation. So following that meeting, I asked the mayor if we could meet with NDOT this evening, if they would appear before the council, but they had busy schedules and could not come to visit with us tonight. So as a result, we're introducing ordinance 21-21 to terminate the interlocal agreement. Now, please note that this is just an introduction. I don't have it, there's nothing on the agenda to adopt this ordinance at this point in time. So there'll be no voting tonight or no voting at their next meeting. I have emailed NDOT this today, and I requested that they appear at the next council meeting on May 24th and to provide us with the answers to several questions. I asked them within that email if they could at least address some of the areas of our concern, which revolved around why did we eliminate the federal highways, federal funding from the agreement? Could they also update us on what additional costs that they were agreeing to provide? Because they had indicated that they were going to help us and support some additional costs. I'd like to know what those costs are, okay? Let me make one last observation. Introducing this ordinance should not be seen as a threat. In my opinion, we do not, in fact, have an agreement. I believe that the agreement that was approved by the previous city council on October of 2018 was in fact breached by INDOT in November of 2020 when it arbitrarily removed the federal participation and federal funding from the agreement. I've asked our attorney to review this document. I've also noted that the administration removed the pedestrian bridge from the agreement, and that further, INDOT is willing to cover some additional cost. All of these issues are significant changes to the agreement, and as a reason, I believe that at the very least, the agreement needs to be amended to take these changes into consideration. I'm looking forward to an open and honest discussion with INDOT at our next council meeting. And again, this council would like to see reconstruction of 32 happen through our downtown area. I also believe that a vast majority of the residents of Westfield want to see this happen. I am just looking forward to frank and honest discussions so that we can all have the same expectations and the desired outcome with respect to cost. That. Jeremy?
Councilor Johns, if you don't mind, I would like to, for the record, Jeremy Lawler, Director of Public Works, I only want to bring to your attention that late today, you all received an email confirming that INDOT will not be available to attend the next meeting. They requested that if you have specific questions, submit them in writing to INDOT, either via the State Road 32 website or via email, and they will answer them in writing by the Friday prior to the meeting on the 24th, and those questions will also be entered into the public record.
Thank you. Open the floor. Any comments, questions from councilors?
Yeah, I respectfully disagree with Councilor Johns. I feel like the NDOT went above and beyond, honestly. Jennifer Beck was here twice. She has answered my questions via email. She's answered any question I've asked. Her boss was, I thought, very helpful on the Zoom call that I was on with two fellow councilors. And I felt like there was plenty of clarity. I certainly have always been in support of this project, but I absolutely welcomed the questions, especially about cost, in the wake of the 37 overrun. And I thought I thought that was just good governance by the council to ask certain questions. So I was never afraid of that scrutiny nor alarmed by those questions, but I felt like NDOT has absolutely stepped up to the plate. Talked about what they will cover in terms of acquisition of right-of-way, pedestrian crossings, historical mitigation, how they will chip in on half of any overrun. I thought they put certainly me at ease regarding the threat of an overrun. I felt like I was educated and appreciated that. While we were at it, just learning more about walkability and design and all the hard work that's gone into that by the engineers. Also, I attended the Historical Preservation Alliance meeting right here. So I feel like we've had plenty of opportunity to do homework, plenty of opportunity to listen, not only to the people here in Westfield, Jonathan Nail, Jeremy Lawler, and all of our fine folks here, but to multiple people from NDOT. I think there's been public meetings, Zoom meetings, all kinds. And so I do perceive this ordinance to be a threat, and I would urge my counselors to vote it down if it appears at our next meeting.
If I could add a comment as well, I agree with Councilor Gilbert. I think he's spot on. I attended, like Jake, many meetings, whether it be the Historical Society, with NDOT, As you mentioned, Counselor Johns, I dialed in on the conference call we had with him as well. I spent an hour and a half, almost 2 hours, last week going around. I hit every booth. I asked questions from everybody that was there. I don't know what else we need in terms of information, other than, obviously, when the bids finally come in, we'll have a decision to make on that final number, and that there is a process that plays out that we follow. And I think it's appropriate for us to be concerned, certainly, because that final number hasn't been disclosed, but I feel very comfortable with the data they shared around their confidence and where we're at currently around the budget, that's going to hit the mark and possibly come in below what we've actually budgeted. I think this is mean-spirited, quite frankly. I'm just going to be honest. I mean, the amount of emails I've gotten, the amount of calls I've had in the last several weeks about this it's silly. This is the third time it's popped on our agenda, and I feel like, in the spirit of transparency, why aren't we communicating clear with the community what we want from this? When are we going to vote on this? How long are we going to dangle this over people's heads? I think it's wrong, and I would ask, what yet do we need? And why haven't we gotten that? Because there has been ample opportunities for us to get that information. Not to mention, I think, just purely from a relationship standpoint, it's bad business. It's bad with our neighbors in Noblesville. It's bad with the county, who we oftentimes need to go to for support on projects. I think it threatens our relationship with NDOT, and I think it has an impact on our MPO process down the road if we want to go after federal dollars. We do not need this reputation attached to us. And I would, like Councilor Gilbert, I would urge everybody to think very clearly about this. We all have concerns, I get that, and that's fine. But the manner we're going about this just feels wrong to me. And I hope that we get this resolved quickly and not dangle this over the taxpayers' heads. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay. Hearing none, we will put this on the agenda then for our next meeting. I'll be in touch with NDOT. I would hope that they would appear. I think it's extremely important that we, as counselors, do what we were elected to do, and that's look after the financial well-being of the city. I have asked several questions of both the administration and NDOT. I've received varying answers. I'm not sure what end is up. I'd like to be able to answer those questions in a public forum. I'd like to be able to have our residents hear the answers to those questions. And when we have the answers with respect to the cost and design that we're asking for, I think we can vote on this. But in the meantime, over the next 2 weeks, we're going to have our attorney look at this, because as I said, I believe that this agreement was breached. I believe it is significantly different than the agreement that was approved 2 years ago. And I do not think that it's a wise move to go ahead and approve something or continue down the road with a moving target under us. So.
Okay, so the only two comments I have to that is I want to give NDOT some accolades as well. They've gone above and beyond for this project, far more than they do with even much larger projects, as far as their cooperation, their willingness to come to the table, answer questions. There were 8 NDOT representatives, all the way from a district commissioner through the downtown group, and I agree. I don't know what else we can do. But I will also offer, assuming they won't be here, because that's what they've clearly stated, that any questions that you all submit to them in writing, I'll be happy to read them on the record so that the public can hear the question that was asked and also the response.
Thank you. Appreciate it, John. Okay.
Let me add one comment. And Jeremy, I appreciate that. And, you know, frankly, as Mike knows, I'm for the 32 expansion. I mean, but one thing that you're seeing up here, I think is, I know it sounds bad, but it's actually good that people have differing opinions. I don't even agree with my wife on a nightly basis. So it's okay for people to have differing opinions. You know, and I read all the transparency and communication of, I mean, the city council can't even all agree. I'm like, my gosh, me and my kids don't even agree. I mean, it's okay. I mean, Mike can introduce it. If it fails, it fails. If it passes, it passes. Again, I'm not for it. I mean, but, and I like Jake's comments. I like Scott's comments. It's okay. Everybody can have their comments. But, with that being said, I mean, because I can see the headlines tomorrow, I mean, oh, city council's falling from the sky. They can't agree. We're going to have comments by citizens. Great. Everybody should have an opinion. But again, I'm okay with that. And if my wife agrees with me every day, man, next Mother's Day is going to be really special. Okay, that's it.
At the end you will be.
At the end,
Yes.
I would like to know, I'd like to go down and see why people are feeling the way they're feeling, just to give us that information.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next item on the agenda. Ordinance 221-30, the ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Westfield. Council introduction today and with up for adoption consideration on May 24th. Okay. This is the ordinance, if I remember right, to establish an internal control department. And then the mayor will establish or identify an internal control officer who will be appointed by the mayor. And it will then allow us to have the Internal Audit Committee begin the selection process in order to identify an internal auditor to replace the State Board of Accounts. Jack, basically it, Joe?
Yeah.
Okay.
So again, while this ordinance itself is legally sufficient, I'll just reiterate, it's cart before the horse that in order for this to be effective, I still maintain that the resolution previously adopted establishing the audit committee needs to be repealed, then this passed, and then that can be passed. Everybody's for it, rowing in the same direction, but we should get it right. So with that, otherwise it's legally sufficient.
Okay, all right. Thank you, Manny.
Yes, sir.
All right.
So Manny, do we need to make a motion to repeal that original resolution and then adopt this one? Is that what you're saying?
Well, yeah, to do it right, you would need to exactly repeal the resolution that appointed and established the audit committee, and then adopt this at the next meeting. And then at the next meeting, after this is adopted, and actually, you have to wait until the officer is actually appointed, then that resolution establishing the audit committee can go forward, and we can be off to the races.
So we can't repeal tonight.
All of which you can do at the next meeting.
Yeah, you can go to the next meeting together.
I'd like to make a
That's
motion
what I
that we
just said.
approve ordinance 21-30.
Well, should we make a motion first to repeal tonight?
That's what I just
Yeah.
said.
Speak,
Is that what I'm
the
asking?
problem is, I spoke to Todd Caldwell. With all due respect to Manny, he disagrees. He said, we can do it in the order that we're doing it. It's fine.
Mr. Patton,
It's a much ado about nothing. So, I'm
And-
just,
And so respectfully, the state doesn't care in which order we do it. You can either move to repeal that tonight, or as I had planned, you can move to repeal it and then redo it after you presumably approve this at the next meeting. As my grandmother would say, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Manny and I are not always going to agree, but you can repeal it tonight, you can repeal it next meeting.
But Ann, we do have to repeal it. Am I hearing you say that correctly? I'm confused here.
Yes, she just advised you to, and I agree with her. And with respect to Mr. Patton, my team called Mr. Caldwell, and that is not what he said. He did not give you
He
legal
actually-
advice,
okay.
which he has never done in his 25 years there. He doesn't give legal advice.
Manny, you weren't on the call when I was on the call with Mr. Caldwell, and he actually told me that he spoke to you, and he actually even said that he came back to me and said exactly what I said.
I didn't say I spoke to him, I said my team
That's
did.
fine.
He did not speak to me.
We'll agree to disagree because you were on the call with he and I.
Okay, well, just so we can move the ball forward here, we have to repeal it, we have to approve this, we can do it tonight, we can do it next meeting. Am I
Well,
hearing
you
that
can't approve
correctly?
the ordinance tonight. You can introduce it tonight, or if you suspend the rules, you can approve it tonight. But yes, I agree with Ms. Poindexter.
Okay.
You do have to repeal the prior resolution.
Okay, perfect.
So can we suspend the rules and move forward? We don't have, everybody's in agreement, we don't have to do that. We can just pass it
We-
and then do it later.
So we could suspend the rules and do this evening, but I think in the past, we've kind of decided that if we don't have to suspend the rules, we'd rather just follow normal procedure. We've introduced it tonight. 2 weeks from now, we take a vote,
My question though is,
approve this, we repeal the other,
yeah.
and
I agree with everything you're saying, Mike. My question to Joe is, and Jake, and I know the three of us have had many conversations about this, are our backs against the wall in terms of timelines to get this filed? Because if not, I agree, we should just wait.
No, we're not. And
Okay,
that's
great.
why I suggest, I think logically, it makes more sense to do it all,
Perfect.
repeal the prior, redo it after you approve the resolution. You can do that all at the next meeting.
Perfect, thank you.
Can I ask a question about this in general? And not the repealing or adding this, but this is creating a department. Does this then need a budget and all that goes with it? I mean, how is this being structured?
So, General, great question. Yes, it is creating a department under 36494. Eventually, the department will be folded into the general budgetary structure and would be part of the budget process, which of course the council ultimately approves.
Well, I mean, we don't have a staff person to assign and stuff like that. I mean, it says that the mayor is going to appoint the internal control officer, correct?
Correct.
Now, we haven't discussed, is that a current staff member? Who is that?
I
I'm
don't know
just
what the
wondering
mayor's
how this
thinking,
goes.
he's not here, but that's going to be an appointment by the mayor.
Okay. I guess we'll work on those details.
at this time, any guest residents who wish to address the council on items not on the agenda may do so.
Give her some idea of what I'm thinking. That's ridiculous. That's just flat ridiculous.
Hello, I'm Michelle Mead, and I've been hearing about State Road 32 and it's kind of a divisive issue. And I like what Scott and Mike and Jake expressed their opinions on how they feel about it. I'd like to hear from the other council members how they feel, what they're thinking. I mean, do they want a new plan? How are you thinking?
Sorry, couldn't hear you.
Well, I already spoke, but I would just add, I think it's inevitable that even if we approve this ordinance and pulled out of the agreement, that NDOT will eventually widen that road. And that being the case, I would rather have a say in how it's done. I think walkability is very important. Mr. Johns has been at the forefront of our council on that issue, I believe, and he and I have had multiple conversations. I think walkability is safety, and I think walkability is really creating a destination that you want to walk in. To be honest, when we go on a vacation and we walk around someplace, it's because the sidewalks, maybe the art, the buildings, maybe the plants, it's a place you want to be and walk. That's part of it. And safety is clearly another part. I don't think that road is walkable now. And so if it's widened, I don't fear that it's going to be less walkable. I don't, walkable to me doesn't mean that you shouldn't have to press a button and wait until the walking signal before you're allowed to cross the street. So I think any enhancements will only make it better. I think it'll make our downtown more beautiful. I think it'll enhance what we're trying to restore and rebuild and redo, and I think it will be more walkable. In addition to that, I applaud the efforts on the historical front. That is something that I guess I was a little bit behind. Cindy gave me some good information even this week, so constantly learning on that as to why some of those efforts are so important in maintaining our status and so forth, and so I can appreciate that. And then lastly, I just, with the amount of people that are coming, whatever traffic congestion, concerns, whatever we may have now, it's only going to get worse. It's not going to get better. So doing nothing to me is not an answer, and that's why I believe regardless of what we want to do, NDOT will widen it. But I would certainly, since it's right through our downtown, I'd rather have a say. And I believe this agreement gives us a say. Whether I agree with every little aspect of it or not saying that. I applaud the scrutiny by the council. I just, at this point, especially before we've even heard the bids that go out this winter, I do not think it's time to pull out of the agreement.
Jill, I talked with you pretty extensively at the open house, so I mean, you do know how I feel about the project. 2018, I did vote to approve it with reservations, and a lot of those reservations are still there. Nothing in that has really changed for me. I still have questions about the agreement. There's actually been things to come along that make me believe that the agreement is not as clear as it could be. And it's not enough necessarily to stop it for me, but it is a concern. But NDOT has been acting in good faith, I would say, and has been answering my questions. The questions I have now are not very answerable at this point. And they won't be until it's actually, final design, or until we structurally figure out what we can do with Erica's, and we're just not there in those aspects of the project yet. But NDOT has specified that they would work with us in good faith on a lot of these things. But again, there's things that are unclear, like the Duke situation and how much that's going to cost and who's bearing all the cost, sharing it, or is it all on us? A few of these questions I'm still a little bit unclear. And Jeremy, you're here. Maybe you can, what I've been told is that we won't know.
I can certainly try to answer anything that I know. I won't speak for NDOT in any way, but if you're talking specifically to the cost of bearing the utilities, that is not a typical road project cost, so that will be borne by the city. But keep in mind, it's not borne outside of the 50-50 agreement. It is part of our contribution to the project. So when you think of what are we sharing, those are things that are essential to the road project. Asphalt, curbs, sidewalks, mitigation. So the historical mitigation is a shared project. Things that aren't are the plantings, the decorative lighting, bearing the utilities, things like that. Things that we are electing to do that they would not do. So think if you go look at a State Road 32 in another city or town and you don't see anything pretty, that is what they pay for. We are contributing to the project so that we can have some control over lots of things, schedule, the construction process, but also the things that we want as a community for our downtown. So I think you had two questions. Mitigation, who's paying for that? We're sharing it. Bearing of utilities, that is part of the project. It is solely on us. If the project comes back over budget, say $16 million, and that is driven by the bearing of the utilities, then the city gets to bear that cost. If it comes back at $16 million and it's driven by the mitigation costs or an increase in asphalt costs, then that's shared in the cost of the project.
And I think just for me, when I was talking about some of the vagueness, I guess, if you will, in the agreement, it's not readily apparent that that's the way it works, to me at least, in that agreement. And that's been a problem from the get-go for me. Okay. And I feel like we still have that in there. And that's all I'm saying.
And I would strongly encourage you to ask that question in writing. NDOT will give you an answer probably very similar to what I've done and what I've seen them respond in other questions that are just like that, and we can enter them into the record. Most likely, they're already in there in the 1,200-page environmental document, but we will gladly hear it again. As far as the quality of the agreement, it is a very standard NDOT form. They created it, we reviewed it, and we presented it to council.
Thank you.
I'm for the project. I want it to be done right. So I said that to the mayor, and he says, well, what does right mean? And I told him that I said that to my wife, and she said, you better explain what you mean. So I'm going to explain what I think it means. It means that we bury the utilities. I think that'll cost us a bunch more than perhaps has been presented, but that's yet to be seen. We'll find out. I think that we need good, attractive lighting. We need broad sidewalks and, to Jake's point, walkability. Those things all come at a cost that we will have to bear. Now, we only get a chance at this probably once in 20 years, and we ought to do the very best we can. And that's what I want to do. I don't want a lot of hand-wringing at the end and saying, my gosh, that's going to cost a lot of money. You're darn right it is. It's probably going to cost more than has been presented to us, but we are here and we're going to have to do it if we want it to look right. If we don't, it'll be a racetrack to relieve the traffic through Noblesville. That's all that'll be.
Thank you, sir, and I'll address a couple things on that. So the lighting, the decorative lighting, will be to our construction standards, which is the same lighting that was implemented on the roundabout down there. That's a part of the US 31 project. So that's what you'll see in the lighting at Poplar and 32.
How about as good as Grand Park?
It'll be our standard road lighting. So if you drive down here to the hospital, that roundabout is lit with our construction standard. And then the second, walkability is not a cost that we bear on our own. Walkability is part of their road project. We're sharing that. So everything that you've seen up to date is a shared cost as a part of the construction.
Broad sidewalks are important to remove people a little way from the traffic.
We all agree, and sidewalks are required for any road project that they do in a local highway situation like this, and they will include them, including the area that they improve to our east as the other two phases of the 32 project are completed.
These things come at a price, and we're going to have to be willing, if we do it right, to pay the price with reason.
Completely agree, and those costs are all included in the estimate that we provided you.
I think you're pretty low on burying the utilities.
We bury utilities quite frequently, and we used educational information to establish those numbers. It wasn't a guess, but we'll see.
I still think you're low, but we'll see.
I understand. We try to utilize data to make our decisions, though.
Just a quick follow-up on Councilor Edwards' comments. Again, I agree wholeheartedly that when we do this, we need to do it right. I think the follow-up to that is once the ship sails, there's no coming back. So we have to really have our arms around all the costs that the taxpayers are going to incur. So again, I understand the NDOT perspective. I understand what's shared, what's not shared, what's completely on the taxpayers of Westfield. And I just think it's very, very important that we make sure we've got our arms around that because again, it's one great big price tag.
Understood, and I can state with 100% confidence that the road dollar number that you were provided, that everyone was provided, and is available publicly, are the best numbers that we have today.
Sure, and another slight piece to that, we've got business owners along that corridor that are certainly going to be impacted by this. I think if this doesn't exist already, we need to make sure that we have provided them the best information we can, and I know some of their expenses, some of their costs, above and beyond how they're going to be impacted by the shifting of the road during construction and all that kind of stuff. Above and beyond that, what we do with the running the electrical, the electricity to their buildings, could cost them, depending on what we end up doing based on cost, could cost those business owners a fair amount of money as well. So I want to make sure that we're taking that into account as well.
Can you help me understand how it would, how it would cost them money?
On the north side, is it fair? Is it is my understanding correct that on the north side, based on how we're able to get the electricity, they're going to be responsible for the hookup? Is that correct? To their
That is
buildings?
incorrect.
That
Yeah.
is,
If we go underground and connect them back, that is not part of their cost. And in fact, the historic buildings on the downtown corner are fed from overhead, which they likely will be at the end of the project as well, because they're grandfathered into that, which they would not be today.
Sure.
If we were to choose to go underground, it is likely that we would have to rewire those buildings, which is why we are opting to have a couple poles at Union and 32 that will move and reconnect, but they'll still be fed overhead unless those buildings are ever updated and brought up to standards, current standards. But there will be no cost to the adjacent businesses to rehook their, not only power, but water and sewer and anything else that's impacted, gas included.
Hey, can I jump in?
Yeah, please.
Hey, Jeremy, I mean, just to piggyback on that, so, and I know, I mean, gosh, I hate to spend more, trust me, but, like, how much would it cost to do those buildings? Because you hate to do a beautiful project and then all of a sudden have to have poles still, you know, for a couple buildings. I mean,
It's two things. It's really hard to determine, certainly without being able to do some sort of like inspection into the building and understand what it takes. But even those are historic buildings, their wiring is all encased. Their electrical boxes likely aren't up to code.
right.
My only other comment about the aerial is we're gonna have aerial traffic signal poles at Union and 32.
That's true.
So
Yeah.
these additional poles aren't gonna create that much of a
So they can
visual
be fed
burden.
through that same kind of line or sight line.
Yeah, so yes, essentially the new poles will move to the back of the right of way outside of what the expansion will be, and they'll still be the overhead poles that are
Gotcha.
visible.
I just want to thank you all. I understand that you're just trying to make the project the best it can be.
Thank you, Jim. Any other comments?
Thank you so much. I wasn't prepared to speak tonight, but first of all, I appreciate what you all do. I've been in your seats. I understand that. No decision is easy, and you're not going to please everybody, and I get that. I wish y'all got along a little better, but you know, that's the way it is. So,
How do you know we don't get along?
well, you may all, but it's kind of funny right now. But anyway, I love the fact that Mike Johns is very interested in the beautification and making it a beautiful spot to be. We've had many conversations, or a couple of conversations over that, and I appreciate that. I don't want to spend a lot of money wasting time doing that, as the die was cast before that notion was made, maybe. It's just the way it is. I just don't want to waste taxpayers' money. I don't think you guys do either. But, you know, the die is cast, and I'm trying to figure out, if we stall this, what is the purpose of that? Maybe to make it a little better, but are we going to lose a lot of money along the way? And I know, Troy, you and I have had a couple of conversations over this, and we agree to disagree on many times, but, you know, I'm trying to figure out, I just don't want to, this is something that has been in motion for a long time, and I'm trying to understand why the stall, I guess. That's it.
Teresa, I don't, you probably remember better than I do. I'm not sure about our conversations, but.
Oh, great, you didn't remember me?
Yeah. I'm actually for the State Road 32 expansion. And in fact, by us going through this process, NDOT has actually come to the table to pay more than what they were going to pay. So, yeah.
Is that really true?
We all found that out
yes,
together
it's
about 3
absolutely
weeks,
true.
4 weeks ago. Yes, ma'am.
Even though Scott Fry and I don't get along, I mean, I'm just kidding.
Other than that,
I
I
know
think
you
everybody
get
else
along.
up here gets along quite well.
Yeah.
See, I think that was a great plus. My only thing is, if they say they're gonna pay more, just send me put it in writing, send us a memo. Amend the contract, that's all. What's it take? Couple hours, an hour?
But
2 hours
what
to
does that
rewrite it?
mean? What does that mean?
Well, that's what I wanna know. That's what I'm asking. What does it mean we're gonna pay more? Put it in writing.
Well, wasn't it already in contractual?
No, it wasn't. No,
And that's true?
right?
I mean,
Read-
I know you're not
I
telling false
encourage you to-
things,
I
but
encourage you to go back to, look at the interlocal agreement. Read
I
through it
did.
carefully.
I've looked at the interlocal agreement, but I don't see that same thing. So, well, anyway, I just urge you, and I know you're in a tough spot and you don't always have the support of each entity of the city, but we really need to keep this thing moving along. I don't think any of you disagree with that. I mean, oh, Scott, you do?
No. In
I
fact,
saw a
should-
little raised of eyebrows.
I don't agree. I
But-
don't disagree.
But I think we need to make this move along, and I want to do it in a fiscally responsible way, but it has to move along. We're gonna end up paying a lot more money if we don't. And I know, Troy, you understand that.
Again, we're saving money. We're saving money more than what we did before in the original agreement, because we have asked different questions, and NDOT has come to the table to pay more than what they were originally paying.
And perhaps that was their intent all along, but that's not part of the contract. So again, to Mr. Johns' point, it's not part of the contract, so why not put it in writing? So again, I think even you are saying the same thing we're saying. We want to make sure that we're doing everything the right
Sure.
way, and we're going to move forward.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
We need a name for this, and I'm just gonna throw this out there. I can't
Teresa
see
Skelton.
it. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Teresa Skelton, 547 North Union, DWA.
I recognized your voice.
Hi, good evening. I wasn't going to say anything, but I was brought up to be very competitive.
Say your name, Judy.
I was going to, Judy Stanley Shuck, 209 West Main Street. Well, today is my 74 and a half birthday, and all but 4 years of that has been at 209 West Main Street. So I've seen everything. I know, I've even seen where taxpayer money has been wasted on things that we really didn't need. I have lost my neighbors. I have lost pets on 32. I even broke up with my boyfriend on 32 many years ago. But the biggest thing in my heart is Westfield. And sometimes I say Westfield is gone. I talk to many people that have left Westfield, families that have lost their home and couldn't stay in Westfield because they couldn't afford to live in Westfield. I have talked to all of you, counselors, most of them, pretty much all of you have been in my home. And one positive thing I have to say, I brought my neighbor boyfriend back from Alabama, and he lives at 209 West Main Street and has for 22 years. And we take care of our property. I don't want to lose any more. I even have people drive by, because they do drive by, but they stop and leave notes on my front porch telling me how beautiful the flowers are. Believe me, I want nothing more than Westfield to be beautiful and to be proud of. And I am in many, many ways still, because I stayed here. My brother and sister left. They ditched me, but I left. I wanted the family home. I raised my 5 children there. And they are proud of Westfield. Why I had to stand up? Because I trust you men and women and Cindy to make the right decision, to be thorough and take care of our tax dollars, but most of all, take care of Westfield. Please. I may have some great-grandchildren up here someday. Right now, they're in southern Indiana, but I may have some great-grandchildren up here. I've got one grandson that lives in Cincinnati, and Grammy, I want this house. He'd be willing to move from Cincinnati to Westfield to live. So I thank you for all your work. I thank you for your passion and your service to all of us.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judy. Any other comments?
Good evening, members of the council. I've communicated with all of you over the last few weeks. My name is Sam Frayne. I live at 16720 Broken Arrow Drive. I proudly became a resident of Westfield in 2016 after my children, 2 of my children, the third one decided to live in Noblesville, actually Fishers. But actually, 2 of my children chose Westfield as their home in the 2014-2015 time range. And my wife and I decided to move from northern Indiana down here. I respect all of your positions. I served on Winnemac Town Council for a number of years and the Pulaski County Council for more than 13 years. I served over 12 years as president of that council. So I do deeply understand your positions, and I apologize for my outburst after Jake's comments, but this 32 project, and I take that back. I respect your item on the agenda that says do not comment about items on the agenda, so I will not. Although, quite frankly, Mr. Johns, Chairman Johns, I think that's wrong. I think you need to hear from the citizens, whether they comment to you after this meeting, before the meeting. But truly, when I ran my county council, I cherished comments from people during the meeting. I cherished comments on the subjects when they were being discussed by my county council, and I deeply appreciated their input, and that's helped me make my decisions as I was their council president. So I hope you consider that in the future. I will not comment about the 32 project other than to offer my position as a state employee in the governor's office and a friend of Joe McGinnis. I will be happy to communicate anything you have, any concerns you have, any comments you have directly to Commissioner McGinnis. Commissioner McGinnis is under the understanding that all your questions have been answered, and if they haven't, please share them with me and I will pass them on directly to him personally. Other than that, I understand you have a commission appointment, city council appointment to the RDC that became available tonight. I'd be more than happy to be an independent voice on that commission for you. I am not city council. I am not city administration. I am a citizen. I have been appointed to many boards and commissions. As I told you, I have served in politics as an appointed official, an elected official, and within party politics. And I never once had a personal agenda when I came to sit at the table. So if you are strictly wanting someone to be an independent voice on the RDC, I'm your man, and I'd be more than happy to take the position. Thank you.
At least you didn't swear. We appreciate that. The clapping was better. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Good evening, councilors. I appreciate your service to the city, and I think we all here understand what a great place it is to live. Whether we've been here a few years, we've been here a number of years, and I just want to point out that we didn't get here overnight. That was a journey. And like all journeys, it starts with small steps, and our community is growing, and communities have a life cycle, and we are growing. There's no question about that. It's unrefuted. I think sometimes we get twisted up and we have the onion syndrome. Everybody wants to know all the information there is in the world, and you keep peeling off those onion layers. And always under the next layer, there's another layer, another layer, and another layer. And so we're incapacitated in our ability to make decisions in a prompt and timely way, and an efficient and cost-effective way. This isn't necessarily about 32. I think we all agree that there are improvements that need to be made throughout our city. We started with Grand Park, and I know some of you don't feel that Grand Park was a good investment, maybe not, maybe yes, but the return on investment I think we have to look at, and has had a huge impact on this city. We didn't arrive at being the best suburb in the United States of America by accident. It was planned, and it was through vision, and it was through leadership bringing us forward. And we're here today. The return on the investment of State Road 32, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to talk about general return on investment, is huge for this city. It will return more than you spend in many, many ways. We are a destination. Traffic is building. People want to come here. Houses are being sold. Big houses. I know there's the argument about how expensive a house should be. So you hear from people that they can't afford to live here, and we need workers, so we have to balance everything. But it is a balance, gentlemen. And we can have a great, great city, but we deserve to give our guests a better entree into the city and through our city, and not only for our guests, but for the residents that are coming here that don't want to, they're avoiding Chicago, they're avoiding these other big cities. Why are they coming here? We don't need a traffic jam on 32, and our police and fire need to have access to move freely for safety of for our citizens, and we need the sidewalks to improve walkability and eliminate future hazards and possibly catastrophe. So I'm here to really promote Westfield. The money you spend will be well returned, and you can calculate that on a sort of an ROI basis, and that's what I think you need to focus on. We will far outweigh the expense that goes into this, and I think like the onion, we're picking apart things, and we're never going to get to the core. It's time to move forward. I thank you all for your service. I'm proud to be here in Westfield, and I'm glad to have you in service here. Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Okay, one more question. That was Jim 8, correct?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Any other comments?
You did receive one email, just to let you know, during that time. It was regarding State Road 32, but it came to both the planner's comment email as well as your emails.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Moving on to the next agenda, city council comments.
Mike, before you go any further, I have a question, if I can.
Sure.
Okay. Did I hear a report was sent to DLGF regarding the RDC? If so, I'd like to have a copy of that report. I'm to enter the RDC minutes as well as the recording of the meeting and all the RDC information into Gateway for DLGF. So if there was something sent to them, I would like to have a copy of that.
All right, let me, I think Manny had referenced that earlier, but.
Yeah, I didn't say anything was sent, I just didn't want any confusion with whatever the annual report would be. It would be
Alright.
sent to DLGF with whatever the presentation was tonight.
Okay,
Yeah, sorry for any confusion.
it's okay.
So there was nothing sent to DLGF regarding RDC?
Not to my knowledge, but I don't know. We can ask Mr. Plankus.
I thought that's what you said, so I'm to enter that into Gateway for DLGF. So if there was something, I need a copy of that.
Again, sorry for any confusion or if I misspoke. Mr. Plankus would know.
Well, I don't ever get any of the information, and I just thought I heard something about DLGF, a report, so I just wanted to make sure I had it.
Is John Rogers on the phone? By chance?
Yes.
Yes, I'm here.
He could probably answer this.
The, Cindy, Jim Treat submits the annual report, he copies your office, he copied your office.
But I need the minutes and the recording of the minutes.
I can
Well.
get you that information.
Okay, because I haven't had it for years and years, so I do need that.
So the report was sent? Sorry, I didn't hear, John.
Yes,
To the
Jim
clerk's
Treat,
office
that-
too?
yes, he copies
Okay.
the clerk's office.
There you go.
yes.
Okay, well, I thought you said you sent it to RDC, regarding RDC to DLGF.
No, I
so
don't send anything.
Jim doesn't send it to DLGF. I have to enter it into Gateway for DLGF. So, but I do need the minutes and the recording of the meeting to put into Gateway. So if you have those, John, I would appreciate that. Thank you.
Those are all on the drive, and the recordings, I believe Chris stores on the drive also. So they're all out there.
Can you guys just get together afterwards?
Yeah,
That sounds
let's
good.
move on.
Thank you. Okay, city council comments, please.
I have a few, if you wouldn't mind. In case other counselors didn't know, there is the AIM Budget Workshop, virtual sessions, in case you want to sign up. I think those are the week of May 20th, if I'm not mistaken. And one of the big things they will be discussing is the new guidance on how the ARP money can be spent. So probably some good information if people are wanting that. And to put it on everyone's radar, one of the mitigation measures being suggested is for us to consider having a historic preservation commission in our city. And so that would require, us putting that together, basically. And I wanted to put that on everyone's radar, that we likely will be having something to consider at some point. If you have any thoughts about it, we should probably discuss that with the public.
Cindy, I have that AIM webinars this Thursday, the 13th.
Oh, it's this Thursday? There's 3 different days.
Okay,
Let's
well, I guess I said,
Okay.
this Thursday, there's one at 11 a.m.
Do you want me to give the APC update now, or?
Yeah,
later?
please do.
The APC met on the 5th, May 5th. We approved the primary plat and overall development plan for the courtyards of Westfield at Town Road and 151st. We had several public hearings, the Grand Park Village PUD amendment for the overall development plan and primary plat for Chatham Hills, Section 6B, overall development plan and primary plat for Sagility on South Park Drive, Winterberg PUD, the Osborne Trails Phase 2 PUD, and the Maple Knoll PUD amendment we approved tonight. And APC will be finishing their training in June. They're doing the citizen planner training through the Purdue Co-op, and it's pretty interesting. So they've been putting in a lot of time. And they also did have some general discussion about potentially looking to enhance the downtown plan. At least one commission member was looking at it, interested in doing that. And some other tangential kind of discussion about the comp plan. So let me know if you have any questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Cindy.
Thank you.
I've got one thing to add, Mike. So the library board continues discussions on the new library. Things are moving forward there, and we had a meeting last week with city leadership to include the mayor, Councilman Johns, our board, the school board, the township trustee, Mark Harebrand, our county commissioner. So it was a wide variety of leaders in the community, and we rolled out what the impacts would be to the taxpayer and some extensive data was prepared and shared. I know, Mike, you've got copies, should have copies of that. I did not, I've got a copy, so I don't need it, but I want to make sure everybody on the council gets that, because it sets the stage for future conversations about the library. But other than that, that's really it.
Mike, speaking of Mr. Patton's earlier comments about tension can be good. You know, we had, sometimes we get to a good spot, even if we're not always, sometimes it's, I know a little, some tension-filled moments up here, but I did go to ProX this week and get the free admittance to Grand Park to try it out. And I believe that we've had over 200 residents in back-to-back weekends attend Grand Park events for free. So I'd like to thank Mr. Patton. I'd like to thank Bullpen, and I'd like to thank the administration to getting us to a place. There's other parts of that agreement, but I got to experience that and save $20 on Little League or seeing my friends' youth baseball games. So thank you.
That was actually, I mean, I appreciate it, but that was you, myself, Scott Fry.
Mr. Fry.
I mean, this is good. Basic blocking and tackling. Appreciate that. Okay. All right.
Troy, anything else?
Finance Committee, I'm going to be as quick as the Finance Committee was. We went through, we discussed the examination by BKD, Baker Tilly Taft, quickly. Waiting with bated breath. It's going to be a grand report because we're still waiting. Discussion of the lack of budget versus actual. We did not have that in the first quarter. Maybe we'll see it in the second quarter. Discussion of State Road 32 Cost East Street, Jersey Street Extension. Jeremy Lawler did a great job, by the way. I appreciate it in the Finance Committee meeting. And then lastly, we had a quick discussion on the tax base in Westfield, the future approval of density versus lot size. And that's something that we need to keep addressing through the comprehensive plan and how we're going to address and anticipate the tax base in Westfield. So, well, that's it.
I'll just, again, kind of repeat a little bit of what Troy and Jake said. I think Bullpen Tournaments for working out a memorandum of understanding for the taxpayers of Westfield. I think Troy Patton for his leadership to kind of bring that to the forefront and push that issue and make that happen. And I want to thank Jake for his leadership in making it, you know, seeing it through to the end. So I appreciate that, gentlemen, for sure. So do the taxpayers of Westfield.
We're working on, the Oversight Committee is working on fleshing out these audit vacancies that we have. We have to appoint an audit committee, council appoints, mayor appoints. A CPA is chosen by the council too, I think, according to state law. But we're still fleshing that out. But the request to do the 2020 audit is already going to be requested of, I think it's Crowe Chiswick is the auditing firm. So they will be doing the audit instead of the State Board of Accounts. It'll be a similar audit. They'll look at similar things. It's kind of prescribed by the State Board of Accounts. So that one will be no different. The big difference will be the 2021 audit. That's when we'll be able to give a little direction to it, perhaps. And so, but it's still, all these are under the auspices of the State Board of Accounts.
I guess just the only thing I'll say in conclusion is that I appreciate everyone's comments tonight on State Road 32. As we move forward toward our next meeting, if any of you have specific questions that you'd like INDOT answered, if you're reluctant to send them to them, send me the questions. I will share them with INDOT. If you have any questions that you would like the city to answer with respect to the cost, please send them to me, and I'll respectfully request the city to provide that information. I think you've heard loud and clear that everyone on this council supports the reconstruction of State Road 32. It's our intent to make it happen, and we just need to get just a little bit more information. And hopefully that day will come in the near future. So that said, thanks for coming tonight. And the meeting is adjourned.
Ann, can I talk to you very briefly?